All right, good afternoon, everyone. Just before we start, can everybody give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Perfect. Thank you. So we're going to start now. Again, my name is Aziza Mazamil, Business Development Specialist with the Business Opportunities Division here at DSLBD, Department of Small and Local Business Development. Today, we will be going over the CBE All Three Things Green Grants. This is an info session for anything related to the green grants. So just some information. The grant did open this Monday, January 20th at 8:30 a.m. So we are currently live and accepting applications. I'm going to give Keith Howard, the manager of the Business Opportunities Division, a few moments for anything he wants to add before we start off on the info session. Go ahead, Keith.
Thanks, Aziz. Appreciate it, and appreciate your hard work on getting this grant up and off the ground for yet another year. We appreciate that. So, good afternoon, everybody. We are excited about this CBE All Things Green grant. You're going to get a lot of information from Aziza, so I just want you to be keenly aware of any dates and times. One date that is really important, you heard her mention that the grant is already open. We're accepting applications. And then conversely, the grant, when does it close, right? So it closes February the 14th, 2025 at 2 p.m. So not 2:01, not 2:05. 2 p.m., right? We're going to be sitting right there at 1:59 waiting to hit the button. So please do whatever you need to do to make sure that your application is in and on time. The other thing I wanted to mention before I turn over to Aziza is this grant is for CBEs, right? So what do you have to do to be eligible? You have to be a CBE. And the beauty of the grant is it's for CBEs to provide services for CBEs, right? And I don't know if there's another grant in the government that does that. I'm sure there is, but I like mine, right? I like this grant right here. We've run this grant. This will be the fourth time. It's opened up some incredible doors. Now, for those of you that want to enter the sustainability space, it's not an exact science. It's not intuitive. And so if you're already in the space and you want to expand on that, this grant is a great way to do it. So I just want to share with you, you're going to get a lot of information from Aziza. Please make note of that information. There are times when you can ask questions, including today, but then there are going to be other specific office hours that she'll talk about. Get your question answered. Once those times end, then there is no conversation, right? So we're out and about a lot. I know people like to say hello and say, hey, about that grant, you're going to get, I'm unable to discuss the grant at this time. So just make sure that you pay attention to those times for the office hours. So I wish everybody the best in the grant process, the application process, the review process, and of course, award. And the last thing I want to mention is if you aren't awarded this grant, please take advantage of the services. You're a CBE. You're the only one that can get services provided by the grantees. So make sure if you're not a winner, make sure that you take advantage of some of the services that are provided by the grantees. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Aziza. I'm going to be on the call the whole time to help out with any questions that may come up. If there's anything I can do to help, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Keith, so much for bringing in greetings. Just before we start, I did want to go over some things. So as you'll notice at the top, the at the top of the screen, you'll see things like chat, Q&A. If you have any questions, please put your questions in the Q&A portion of the chat. We'll be holding off till the end of the presentation to answer questions, as most likely your questions may be answered in another portion of the presentation. So just be aware that that might be happening. And also at the end, if we didn't cover it, we'll make sure to get to your questions. Also, this session is being recorded. And once the session finishes, we'll be transferring it over to a YouTube video and we'll send it out to everybody registered. So if you want to reference back to this, no worries, you can. We'll probably send it out if we can tomorrow or at the beginning of next week. As Keith mentioned, the grant does close February 14, 2025 at 2 p.m., but also notice the time zone. This is Eastern time zone, where we're at. So if you happen to be traveling in a different time zone, just remember that you have to submit it by 2 p.m. our time. Moving on. This is the agenda for today's session. So we're going to give an overview of what the grant is about, and most of this presentation is going to be split between the request for application, the RFA, which is posted on our website, but also the Zoom grants application. So I'm going to actually walk you through just the beginning portions of the test application if you have any questions. And then we'll go over briefly the award process and then cover any questions that you may have. To start off, the objective, we just want to cover that the CBE All Things Green Grants are awards for direct support to small, resident-owned, and disadvantaged CBEs to pursue DC sustainability energy utility contracting opportunities or opportunities with similar green or environmentally sustainable goals. Just give me a second because I keep having notifications pop up and I don't want that to distract. All right, everyone, sorry about that. Moving on is the objective of what we're looking for. So as you'll notice, the CBE Green Grants is broken up into 4 different sections. The first is the Contract Services Grant, in which we're looking for 4 CBEs to provide direct marketing and back office services for at least 35 CBEs. So just to be specific, if you are awarded the grant individually, you will have to provide services to 35 CBEs in the CBE Green Contracting Service Program. And the grantees, the portions will be broken into marketing and management consulting. Consulting refers to proposal development, pricing, and accounting. And you guys will be training in areas that would strengthen CBE's preparedness and competitiveness for green and environmentally sustainable infrastructure and green-related procurement opportunities. So these will be trainings and one-on-ones. The next part is the pitch program. So we are looking for 1 CBE through the CBE Green Pitch Program to conduct a 4-week cohort-based training program for other CBEs registered with DSLBD as small, resident-owned, or disadvantaged. The 4-week cohort-based training program will help other CBEs enhance their green business models, culminating with the CBE Green Pitch Competition. So as Keith mentioned, if you are not awarded that, if you're looking to facilitate the CBE Green Pitch program, you can, on the latter end of this, be a participant in the pitch cohort. Next part is the CBE Green Lottery. Okay, give me a second. I see people are saying that they can't see the screen. If you can see the screen, can you please give me a thumbs up? I just want to make sure this is not an issue for everybody. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry that you cannot see the screen. I will be sending a recorded version of this, so hopefully you could access this. And all of this information is also in the RFA. Moving on, I'm just going to start over with the lottery. So we're looking for up to 9 CBEs registered with DSLBD as small, resident-owned, and disadvantaged, and selected via the CBE Green Business Support Lottery to use grant funds in support of their business operations and viability when pursuing contracts with DCSCU and similar entities in the green and sustainable infrastructure and energy industries. Again, you'll see later on that generally we have some attestations and some eligibility requirements that you will need to provide, but outside of that, this is a lottery grant. So after you are labeled as eligible, you will be selected through a lottery system. Next and last is the CBE Green Industry Rally Day. This is a CBE event planning grant. We will be selecting one CBE to plan DC's CBE Green Industry Rally Day through the CBE Green Event Grant. The CBE Green Industry Rally Day is an annual event for CBEs to learn more about DOEE and DCSCU's green and environmentally sustainable initiatives. The event will offer matchmaking sessions with DCSCU for contracting and networking opportunities. Many of you may have attended this event the past 2-3 years that we've had it. Moving on is the grant purpose. So CBE Green is DSLBD initiative that was created to promote and support the involvement of CBEs in the expanding green and environmentally sustainable energy and buildings market. This is a grant and partnership with the DC's Department of Energy and the Environment, also known as DOEE, and DSLBD is supporting CBEs through additional training opportunities to prepare them for procurement opportunities offered by DOEE, DCSCU, and beyond. So request for application. So what we're doing today for the most part is reviewing the request for application. You can access the request for application on DSLBD's website. So this is the direct link to that. But if you also just go on DSLBD.dc.gov, you can access the grant and all this information. I do want to mention again, because this comes up every year, that the final deadline to submit the application is February 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, no exception. And the last date to submit questions regarding the grant is actually January 31st. So that's next Friday at 2 p.m. again, Eastern Time. And all questions must be submitted in writing to the business opportunities at dc.gov email. Again, that's business.opportunities@dc.gov. So first, we're going to review eligibility. So these are just some of the things we ask when we're determining eligibility. The first is an active CBE certification number. The number must be for the applicant business and must be the same number listed on the DSLBD website and you'll see this website. You can access the DSLBD portal through the DSLBD website. It's very important that you put the right number that correlates to the one that is listed in our portal. The next is the active DC business license number. This must be searchable in the DLCP business license lookup or uploaded to provide proof of alternative licensure. So certain businesses like lawyers, you may not have a business license, but you have different licensure. You will need to upload your alternative. Next is the Office of Tax Revenue compliant clean hands. This document must be issued October 1, 2024 or later. You can check your clean hand status and generate a notice of compliance if compliant for free at the OTR website. So all of the things I'm mentioning in the future slides will cover where to get this information. And I also want to mention, in terms of the clean hands, it must be issued October 1, 2024 and later. And at the time that we are reviewing it, you must remain compliant. So when we're checking if it says non-compliant, unfortunately, you will be marked as ineligible. Next is the commercial general liability insurance as applicable. So we need commercial general liability insurance, and if applicable, proof of workman's compensation and automobile liability. Eligibility continued. We will ask for your employment identification number. This is available for free at irs.gov. We also ask for IRS W-9 2024 form or later. I did want to address this because in your application, you may notice that it asks for 2018. So we will be accepting 2018 and 2024, but we will not be accepting any form type that is prior to 2018. And last but not least, you will need to provide attestation of registration as a vendor with the Office of Contracts and Procurement. And more details are available at this hyperlink. We will be verifying this internally. So in terms of retrieving your active CBE certification number, this is where you want to retrieve it from. So if you go on dslbd.dc.gov and scroll down, you'll be able to see a link with the CBE portal. This is the portal that it's referencing to. So you can put your business name in here and find your business in that portal, and you will be able to directly copy the number that we have listed. I want to stress this because sometimes people will have recertified. When you recertify, it is a possibility that the number may change. So we urge everybody to go onto the website and get the most recent CBE number. Next is your active DC business license number. You want to go to scout.dcra.dc.gov to retrieve this number. So at this drop down, you could either search it by address or your business name, and then under licenses, you'll find the information we're looking for. And I want to reiterate that you must be an active business. So if you don't have a basic business license, you can submit alternative licensure. So a few business types do not require DCRA basic business license, commonly lawyers, medical professionals, some additional professional services, and childcare centers. If this applies to you, you must upload proof of alternative licensure, and it must be active again. Next is the Office of Tax and Revenue Compliant Clean Hands document issued October 1st, 2024 or later. On this document, it must have the name of your business and must state that you are compliant. It must have the same EIN or FEIN as a application. So we'll ask it separately in Zoom grants, and then the FEIN number on the application on your Clean Hands document and the W-9 must match. Again, it must be dated October 1, 2024 or later and verifiable in mytax.dc.gov. And it must be compliant. So you must make sure it continues to be compliant as we check it throughout the grant process, but also when we're doing eligibility. And this is where you want to go on verifiedmytaxdc.gov, because this is how we check to make sure that it is current and compliant. You want to go validate a certificate of clean hands. When you scroll down, you'll see this area, and you want to make sure you go there and it says you're compliant. Just covering again the certificate of insurance, proof of commercial general liability insurance. We want the certificate of your insurance, and again, as applicable, proof of workman's compensation and automobile liability. For your FEIN, the employment identification number, this number must match 4 places in the application. That's the application summary, required eligibility, the clean hands, which will list the last 4 digits, and then your IRS W-9 form. And as mentioned below, this is where you want to reference to find that correct number on the IRS's website. The IRS W-9 form, 2024 form or later. Again, we are also accepting the 2018 form. And And again, you want to make sure that the business name and the EIN should align on here. So any places where we repeatedly ask the same information, you want to make sure that everywhere is asked is the same information. Moving on is to the use of funds. So these are the allowable uses, and you want to make sure so that you review these in terms of making sure that this grant is applicable to what you want to use it for, so that if you were to be awarded the grant, there's no issues with your compliance with the grant. First is direct back office support and related costs, including but not limited to staff time, materials, space for in-person meetings or technology or virtual meetings. Next is software supporting marketing and or back office services. Examples are accounting or project management software for CBE program participants. Third, marketing collateral or materials, programming, and other resources to support and inform CBEs pursuing green and environmentally sustainable infrastructure and energy-related opportunities. Fourth are costs expended by the grantee to measure the impact of the grantee's consulting and training sessions performed pursuant to the FY'25 CBE All Things Green Grant Program. Fifth are other costs proposed by the grantee, which are expended during the period of performance as approved by DSLBD in its sole discretion. So I just want to stress these costs must be approved by DSLBD prior to you attaining them. And these are the disallowed uses of the funds. First is financing or paying off pre-existing debt, such as credit card, lines of credit, loans, tax obligations, whether for business or personal use. Second is expenses incurred outside the period of performance. So we'll get to this later, but the period of performance is from when your grant is executed, and the last date of the period of performance is September 30th, 2025 at the end of the fiscal year. But all this information will be if you are awarded this grant in your grant agreement. Third is expenses reimbursed by a separate grant disbursed by DC government to the awardee. Fourth is personal or other uses unrelated to the purpose explicitly identified in the grant agreement. Last is food, with the exception that food expenses incurred while attending professional development conferences related to the grant program outside of Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, or for the CBE Green Industry Rally Day and CBE Green Pitch Competition, in which the grantees will expense food and beverages for the participants, attendees, and staff. The CBE Green event grantee is prohibited from expensing food and beverages outside of the CBE Green Industry Rally Day. The CBE Green Pitch grantee is prohibited from expensing food and beverages beyond in-person training and pitch sessions. And this is disallowed uses continued. Sixth is alcohol or alcohol-related paraphernalia, which are wine glasses, mixers, big beer taps, etc. Payment to a professional fundraiser to raise funds for the grantee, donations to charitable givings to nonprofit organizations, vehicle purchases or leases, real estate purchases, costs related to DC or federal government lobbying efforts, costs related to lawsuits against the district or federal government, any activity, good, service, or product deemed illegal by the district, any activity, good, service, or product deemed ineligible by DSLBD in its sole discretion, and last or not least, expenses incurred without prior DSLBD approval. So if you're not 100% sure, you can always email us to make sure. If you don't have approval, please do not expense it. So moving on, as mentioned.
Aziza, let me jump in right there. So just for the listening audience, that disallowables is very important, right? And so if you notice, she's reading it to you. There's a reason for that. The reason for that is you guys get a lot of emails from us, right? And this information is very important. And the questions we usually get are in our content. And for whatever reason, you didn't get it, right? So we want to make sure that we've done our job to make sure that you guys know, especially these things that are really, really important, like the disallowables, right? So I thank you, Ayana. The disallowables, if you miss that, and then we've got a problem in September, then we got a bigger problem. And so we want to make sure that that's avoided. So, just be patient with us, be patient with the process. This is very important stuff. We're talking about $500,000 in grants, and we just want to make sure that we do it slow and right versus fast and wrong. So we appreciate that. Aziza, carry on. You're on mute.
Thank you. I was just saying, if you are looking in the chat, Katina Bolden actually dropped the CBE certified search portal link. So you could access it directly from here and you could just bookmark it so you'll always know where to reference it. Moving on is the application types. So you'll see here that the application is broken into two separate types, which is the competitive. So 3 of the grants fall under this, which is the CBE Green Contract Services Grant, the CBE Green Pitch Grant, and the CBE Green Event Grant. And then there's the lottery grant, which lottery is for the CBE Business Support Lottery grants. The RFA contains all questions and their respective criteria. So the RFA is pretty extensive in terms of the categories and the type of questions we're going to be asking to sort through the applications and deem who's eligible. The competitive questions have a lot of narrative questions as opposed to the lottery, which is just eligibility. So a lot of what we went through in terms of W-9 form, the FEIN, clean hands, that's what the lottery is going to ask as opposed to the competitive, which will ask narrative questions. Applicants who do not meet eligibility requirements will not be scored or considered for a grant. So if you do not pay attention to the eligibility that we just went through, you would have really wasted your time in terms of the narrative part of the question. Because if you do not pass eligibility, we're not scoring your narrative questions in terms of the competitive portion of the grant. And obviously for the lottery grant, if you do not meet eligibility, you will not be put in the pool to be a part of the lottery. All documents and attestations showing eligibility must be submitted through the online Zoom grant application system. So you cannot email it to us. And this is why we urge you to start your application as soon as possible, because again, the questions period does end next Friday, January 31st. So you want to make sure that if anything goes wrong or you have any issues that you can ask ahead of time. And any technical issues that you have with Zoom grants, you will have to directly email them at Zoom grants. The email is listed on the RFA for you to contact them. And false attestations can result in grant forfeiture and other penalties as appropriate. Okay, so navigating Zoom grants, if you could just give me a second, I'm also actually going to switch the screen to the actual Zoom grants application so you can see it live. And I think, Keith, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted you to go ahead and knock out that question from Georgetta Howie about the lottery. She was asking about can she apply both for the lottery
Yes.
and the competitive?
I see that.
So
Yes.
there you
So
go.
Georgetta, you said, can we apply for both lottery and one of the competitive grants? Yes. So you can actually apply to all portions of the grant, but you are only able to win in one part. So you cannot win in all parts or 2 parts. You can only in one part. But as far as applying, you could go ahead and apply. And I do want to mention from previous year's experiences, if you're going to apply to multiple portions, you're going to probably have to use different accounts because it doesn't allow you to use the same account to apply to multiple parts of the grant. So I'm gonna answer Ayana Smith. I only came here to ask about Zoom grants. The Zoom grants application seems to be for the grants, but not the event solicitation. So I'm gonna go reference it because I think if we go through it, it will answer a lot of your questions about navigating Zoom grants. Sorry, guys, I was talking on mute. Yes, so can everybody see my Zoom grant screen? Just thumbs up if you can see it. Perfect. I see a couple of yeses in the chat and some thumbs up. Okay. So this is where you're gonna go. So this is what the Zoom grant interface looks like. You can directly go to the link by going on our DSLBD website, which I'll actually try to show you that way. So dslbd.dc.gov. And if you go to the fourth slide right here, or you could type in grants right here, then you're going to click on the CBE Green Grant. And right here, how do I apply? You want to click on the Zoom Grants application hyperlink. And you'll see right here, CBE FY'25 CBE All Things Green Grants. And to apply, you must have a login or account. So you want to click apply. So you'll say you must be logged in to start a new application. So I'm going to log in right here real quick, and I'm going to stop sharing real quick till I log in. Yeah, for sure. So you'll see because I have FY'24s, it's not directly showing me to that. But once I logged in, I just put in the hyperlink to the application, which I'll also drop here. But if you are ever confused, just reference our DSLBD website, which has the link as well. You want to click apply again, or for you, it should just say apply. This is my text account, so that's why it's saying apply again. So this is the first page that you'll see here. So these are the basic questions that I'll ask. So for those of you that are applying for the contract services, the event and pitch, it'll ask you the amount requested. So you could put that there. And the RFA, it'll detail which the amount is. So please correlate that with the amount that you put here. Again, you want to put your application information, first, last, telephone, email, and we also want to make sure that this is the owner of the CBE's information. And nobody can apply on behalf of a CBE. This must be the actual CBE applying. It'll ask for the organizational information, CEO, executive director, you'll see that, or an employee of the CBE. And if you want to collaborate on this application, the person that's actually handling the application, you can add their information to collaborate with you. But I do want to make sure that you notice they cannot submit, archive, or delete this application. The main person must do that. So you want to click next. And this might answer, Ayana, your questions. Well, actually, the next part will. So required eligibility. Whether you're applying for any portion of the grant, that's the contract services, the event, the pitch competition, or the lottery, you have to provide the information for the eligibility. As I mentioned before, if you do not pass eligibility, you will not be able to move on as far as scoring. So if you do not provide the correct information for this, we're not even going to look at your narrative questions for the competitive part of the grant. So you want to make sure all this information is correct. And then you'll see right here, I'll ask you, did you upload your Office of Tax Revenue Clean Hands compliant? You want to make sure that you do upload those things, because if we cannot see it in the uploaded section, we will not be able to mark you as eligible. And you'll see right here as you scroll down for the different parts, whether it's the clean hands, the insurance, if applicable, the workman's comp, automotive insurance, your W-9, etc. It'll have the different parts where you need to upload. And then next is the narrative part of the question. So this is where you select. So I want you to notice here, if you select a certain part, the questions actually change. So if you select contract services, you'll see right here, it'll ask you whether your proposal covers market management consulting. So these are things like pricing, proposal development. You'll click that, and then it'll ask you, it's saving, but it's also differentiating. So it'll ask you these questions. So you'll see that it goes from question 1, 2, 3 consecutively all the way to question 14. But if you were to select, for example, the green pitch, it's saving, it changes to 15 because it's different questions based on the different type of the grant that you select. It branches off. So maybe that answers your question. Let me go back to. Yeah, so Ayane said, I came here to ask about the Zoom grants. The Zoom grants application seems to be for grants and not event solicitation. You have to click on the part. So I'll click on the event and you'll see it jumps to question 24 because that's where the questions about the event grant start. And make sure a lot of these questions it'll ask, well, not a lot, a good portion that you upload things like resumes and program plans, etc. Make sure you are uploading those so that the reviewers have as much information as possible. And then it'll ask for budgets. Make sure that if it's not provided on other parts, that you also include that. And then last but not least, the optional documents. So anywhere that is optional, you can, for example, the 3 letters of support, I believe that actually I'm not going to go through that, but you'll see here, these are the required ones. So you want to make sure you go to the end optional documents, but these right here are the documents requested. So you'll see here that you make sure you upload all these portions. And then here at the end, it's saying previous for me, but it should be for you saying submit if you provided all the information, submit, but I obviously wasn't filling in these portions. I just wanted to walk you through it. And if you guys let me see for a second, I'm going to answer any questions you may have before we exit this part. So I'm going to go backward. FedSci, you asked for the lottery. It asks about submitted expenses. Is the expectation you include a breakdown for how your firm would utilize the funds if received? Correct. Yes. The budget should be equal to the amount we requested. Yes. To be clear, the amount that you're asking for the event grant is the amount you're charging to produce the event. Correct. Yes. So, once, if you were selected, you're going to have to provide a program budget, which you break down how you plan to spend this amount in terms of, the cost of your services or any other expenses, as long as they align with the allowable expenses. But that is correct, Ayana. So do we have to make a new account for each of these categories to be able to apply to multiple? Yes. Okay. Also, the event grant is for 35,000, I believe. I'm not looking at the document. So what's the most you can request for the Zoom grant? Say 75K is the max. So we put the max in terms of all the grants, but for the event grant, I'm going to reference the RFA. I don't want to give you the wrong information here. You see here for the CBE event grant awards intends to award 25,500. So that's the max you should be requesting for the event grant. And then you'll see here for the contract services, anywhere between 50 to 70,000 each. How many can we apply for? You can apply for all four. You can only win in one category. And as mentioned before, the way that the system is set up on Zoom grants, you will need to make a different account for each application. So it's not clear if the event is expected to have food, swag, or anything else. So if you'll see in the RFA, it'll under the disallowable cost where it mentions food, it makes an exception for the CBE event grant. So please reference that for any questions you might have for food, swag, or event or anything else. If you were a grant recipient last year, can you apply? Yes. The only thing that you cannot apply for is if you were a recipient of the FY'24 lottery grant, you cannot win again for the FY'25 lottery grant. For FedSci, quick follow-up, can you clarify if we have to submit proposals separately? I was able to make a copy in Zoom grants from the home screen. Should it not be submitted that way? I wouldn't recommend that you do it that way. Because I don't want it to replace it. Generally, we've always went with the understanding that you should make a different account for each application if you're submitting in different categories. If you are awarded the grant but also picked for the lottery, will one of those be canceled out? Yes. So if you were to win in one of the competitive parts of the grant and the lottery, we will take you out of the lottery and you will be awarded in whichever competitive part that you win in. All right, so I'm going to move on to the other portions, and any questions that follow up, I'll be answering at the end of the Q&A section. Option. Sorry, so the last part we were on was the navigating Zoom portion. I hope I was able to clarify any questions you guys had about navigating the application interface. If you still have any questions specific to this portion, please feel free to book a office hour with me. I'll drop that link in a few seconds or a few minutes in the chat. Again, I do want to reiterate that as far as any technical issues with Zoom grants, you will have to reach out to Zoom grants themselves. But if you have any questions about clarifying questions, you can book an office hour with me. Moving on is the selection process. So DSLBD will select awardees through a competitive application process for the CBE Green Contract Services Grant, the CBE Green Pitch Grant, and the CBE Green Event Grant. A review panel, which may be composed of DSLBD partners, member of the public, and DC government employees, will review eligible applications received by the submission deadline and score them against the above criteria. DSLBD hopes to select a diverse set of awardees that will support DC's CBE community by offering a wide array of direct services, including marketing, cost estimation, and procurement proposal development. As far as the criteria, all of that is detailed in the RFA. I can't stress enough how important it is that you read the RFA and the NOFA thoroughly. A lot of the questions you might have about what we're looking for exactly that, we don't really have enough time to detail in this info session will be found in the RFA or the NOFA. The DSLBD Business Opportunities Program team will review the panel's recommendation and report them to the director of DSLBD, who will make the final determinations of the awardees. And in terms for the lottery grant, DSLBD intends to select awardees through a lottery process for the CBE Green Business Support Lottery Grant. DSLBD would assign eligible applications with a number and then use a randomized lottery system to select recipients. And again, the director of DSLBD will finalize and announce the selected awardees. Award information, grant award notification. DSLBD anticipates notifying awardees in March 2025. Applicants who are not awarded the FY'25 CBE All Things Green Grant will be notified of their status no later than 1 week following the initial notification to awardees. Formal grant agreements. So once you are selected as an awardee, awardees must sign an individual grant agreement with DSLBD. For applications who received a DSLBD grant in the past, awards will be contingent on compliance with applicable DC laws and may be contingent upon the completion of their previous grants reporting requirements. The selected applicants may forfeit funds if one, it refuses to execute a grant agreement during the award process. So it's important that you guys are aware and very responsive during that process. There's a lot of back and forth. Fails to execute the grant agreement by DSLBD's deadline, March 21, 2025, or 3, cannot meet post-award requirements for any reason, or 4, cannot make the appropriate and required attestations related to the grant agreement. Additional survey assessment. DSLBD may survey awardees following the execution of the grant agreements. Grantees must comply with DSLBD's survey requests. Grant reporting. Grantees must comply with ongoing reporting requirements pursuant to their respective grant agreement. Grantees may submit an approved budget outlining the expenditures made in connection with the grant program alongside appropriate documentation. DSLBD will only accept full bona fide receipts, canceled checks, and other verifiable evidence of payment as proof that a grantee made appropriate expenditures. Grantees may be required to return grant funding upon their failure to submit appropriate documentation of proper expenditures. Last but not least, grantees must prepare a final report by October 30th, 2025 that includes, among other items, a proof of appropriate expenditures and their program's impact. important legal disclaimers. So this is a lot that I will not be reading through today, but again, this is listed again on the RFA, the request for applications, that is on DSLBD's CBE grant website. Please reference that for to make sure that you are in agreement with this by submitting an application. And also, once you're awarded and you sign that grant agreement, this information will be there as well, but you are agreeing to these important legal disclaimers. Moving on to the questions policy. Again, this is the information session that we are in today. And for our drop-in Q&A sessions, these are the office hours that I was mentioning, which I'll be dropping the links to in a few minutes. These will be, these are dates are not correct. My apologies for that. These will actually be happening on the 24th, which is tomorrow, Friday the 24th, and then Monday the 27th. If you have any questions for that specific to you that you want to cover or you feel like weren't covered in detail during this Q&A section. For any inquiries outside of the information session, and if you weren't able to get time during the office hours or the question arised after the office hours, you want to submit them in writing to the business.opportunities@dc.gov page email by 2 p.m. Eastern Time on January 31st, 2025, which is next Friday. So you have about a week to do that. I want to stress how important it is that if you haven't already, you go into the Zoom grants link and start your application. You don't want to start the application after this question period is over, as you won't be able to get any clarifying answers outside of maybe referencing this Q&A session or this information session. Okay, and give me a second. Let me drop the link for the office hours for those of you that are interested. So I have dropped the link. It says bookings with me, Aziza Muzamil. I'm gonna try to see if I can pin it. So I just pinned it in the chat. So hopefully you'll all be able to reference it without scrolling too much. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat now. I'll be going through the questions from the last period where we answered the questions.
Now I know, Aziza, hey, Malik had a question. Not sure. Did you answer it? Will
I'm not sure.
DSLBD? Will DSLBD?
Can you tell me the timestamp for that question?
Let me see. Let me see where it go. It was at the beginning. Hold on, let me find it. It got caught up. The timestamp.
Or Malik, if you're still on here, if you could just type it again, if that's
Right
not
there,
too
the
much trouble.
timestamp was 12:33. Will DSLBD provide the 35 CBEs for the back office grant?
Okay, thank you for asking that. That is important. So no, you will have to seek out these 35 CBEs. We will help you in terms of marketing. So once you are selected, once you establish your marketing plan or onboarding plan in terms of your one-on-one sessions, we will blast that out to the CBEs. And also if you have information sessions, we will send that information out. And anytime we have events, we will let people know that this grant is running, but you will be responsible for making sure you meet your number of 35 CBEs reached. But we will support you in terms of getting that information out there through the business opportunities email and any events that we have, such as Green Ovation, etc. Okay. Okay, somebody said the deadline date. So the application deadline date is February 14 at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. As Keith said in the beginning, we will be online at 1:59 on February 14th, waiting for 2 o'clock to hit so that we could close the application. So please do not wait until that last hour or last minute to submit your application. So Georgetta, you said, does the Zoom Grants app allow you to start and stop, or do you have to complete applications? I do believe that you can start and stop. You do not have to complete your application in one sitting. Just make sure, I believe that it automatically saves, but if there's a save button that you save it. To go the extra step in terms of answering the narrative questions, I would recommend that you type them out on a Word app and save it for yourself so that, God forbid, technology, we, aren't all the way in control of that. If there's an issue with that, you can refer to it in another place. But you can start, save, and come back. You do not have to finish your application in one sitting. And I believe Melody also answered that question for you, Georgetta, as well. If there aren't any questions, if I missed your question by any chance, if I haven't answered it, please take the time now to put it in the chat. Otherwise, you guys don't have any questions. Jerry said that link is not valid. Is there another? Are you referring to the office hours link or which link? Okay, give me a second. Let me see if Okay, so Jerry, I'm not sure what's happening there. I am able to access it. If you are not able to do it, if you want to just send an email at business.opportunities and I will book one with you, but it should be able to allow you to book time using that link. Melody, I think you said, did you answer Ayana's question about grant versus RFPs? To see. Okay, so last question. Why are you all calling this a grant when the CBE has to work for it? Why not just put out a RFP for the work? I'm confused by it. Keith, do you want to field this question? So I'm not sure if Keith is still on. At this time, we are marketing it as a grant. So that's just what we will be moving forward with, but we will take heed to that and let you know if anything changes in terms of the name of the grant. Okay, how many hours of training required per participant, please? So in terms of, we do not dictate how many hours. It's just you must reach CBE's 35 CBE requirement. But we do not have hours of training. In terms of training, you must do, once you're awarded the grant in the grant agreement process where you will provide the program plan and the budget plan, we will work with you in establishing what you must provide in terms of, I believe this year we're going between 1 or 2 group trainings that you must provide to the CBEs. And from there, you will be providing one-on-one consultation sessions with the CBEs. This is in terms of the contract services grant. For the pitch and grant, it will depend on how your narrative question is answered in terms of your program plan. So we just want to make sure that all CBEs are serviced the proper way. But a lot of the questions about the hours required will be dependent on how your program plan is presented. I hope that answers your question. All right. Again, I'm gonna drop the business.opportunities page, business.opportunities email for any questions you may have. This is where you want to send in your written questions about the grant. This is the only place we'll be answering them. And if no other questions, I'll just stay on here for about 2-3 minutes and end the meeting. Thank you, everybody, again for joining this meeting. We wish you the best of luck in applying for the grant.